Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Every Thursday evening, rain or shine, my best friend and I hit the local swimming pool for our weekly exercise ritual. We do our laps, spend time in the sauna, and finish with a relaxing session in the steam room. It's our thing. Has been for years now. About a year ago, I got this amazing metal water bottle. It's nothing fancy really, just a bright blue bottle with my favorite Disney character on it. I love that thing. It keeps my water ice cold for hours, which is perfect for those scorching sauna sessions. I take it everywhere. Work, gym, hiking, you name it. My friend jokes that it's an extension of my arm. So last month, we were at the pool for our usual Thursday swim. We'd just finished in the sauna and I was melting. I placed my water bottle on the ledge of the pool and jumped in to cool off. The water felt amazing after the heat of the sauna. My friend and I were doing our usual laps when something caught my eye from below the water. As I was swimming up from the bottom of the pool, I spotted some kid grabbing my water bottle from the ledge and making a run for it. I broke through the surface and shouted that the bottle was mine, but the kid just ran faster. They were headed straight for the exit. I quickly swam to the side of the pool and hoisted myself out, dripping wet, to cut them off before they could leave. I approached a woman who was with the kid and told her that her kid had my water bottle. She made this scoffing sound and tried to walk around me, but I stepped in front of her again. I repeated that her kid had taken my water bottle. The woman looked at the kid, then at me, and told me that it was a kid's water bottle meant for children, and that I should grow up and get out of her way. I knew what kind of person I was dealing with. I looked directly at the kid and told them to hand over my water bottle. The kid clutched my bottle and whined to their mother that the bottle was theirs, and that they wanted to keep it. The mother crossed her arms and said that since her kid wanted the bottle, and it was for children, I should let them have it. She told me to move aside. I was getting irritated. I warned her that I would knock her into the pool and take my bottle back if she didn't hand it over. The mom's eyes went wide and she started yelling for help, saying that I was threatening her and trying to steal from her child. My friend was still in the pool, laughing at the scene unfolding. The lifeguard and another staff member came over to see what was happening. The staff member asked what was going on. The mother told the staff that I was trying to steal her child's water bottle. I shook my head and explained that it was my water bottle that I had brought with me today, just like I do every week. The staff member suggested that they could check the security cameras to see who had come in with the bottle. Before he could finish, the lifeguard, who had seen me many times before, stepped in. He told them that the bottle belonged to me, saying that I was a regular customer who always had that same bottle every week. The mother kept arguing. She said it was a children's water bottle because it had a cartoon character on it. She said they were leaving. The staff member warned the woman to hand over the water bottle, or they would call the police and have both her and her child banned from the facility for life. The mother's face turned red. She snatched the water bottle from her kid's hands and then she threw it straight into the deep end of the pool. It nearly hit someone swimming below. She yelled at me to go fetch it, then grabbed her kid by the arm and walked out of the building. The lifeguard left. My friend, still in the pool, pointed to where my bottle had sunk to the bottom and told me to go fetch it. I left too, despite being annoyed. I had to dive down twice to retrieve my bottle from the bottom of the pool because I missed it on the first attempt. When I finally got it back, thankfully, the lid had stayed on tight and no pool water had gotten inside. The next time we went swimming, the staff told us that the woman and her kid had been banned. This wasn't the first complaint they'd received about them taking things that didn't belong to them. The lifeguard said I should get a chain for my water bottle. My Disney bottle and I still go swimming every Thursday. Now I keep it closer to me when I'm in the water. For the past 3 years, I've taken the same subway line to and from my job at the downtown accounting firm. The routine had become so mundane that I barely noticed my surroundings anymore. Wake up, shower, grab coffee, board train, zone out, work, board train, zone out, home, sleep, repeat. That was my life. The monotony of it all had started to wear on me, especially after my recent breakup. 6 years together, and she just decided one day that she needed space. 3 months later, I was still taking the long way home just to avoid walking past our favorite coffee shop. That day, I was tired after pulling an all-nighter to finish the quarterly reports. All I wanted was to get home, collapse on my bed, and sleep for 12 hours straight. It was just another ordinary day on the subway. People were going about their usual routine, some were reading books, some were listening to music, and others were just staring blankly into space. I was one of the latter, lost in my own thoughts when the chaos started. Suddenly, a Karen burst through the subway doors, nearly knocking over a man in the process. She had a look of pure anger on her face, and it was directed at a pregnant woman who was sitting on one of the seats. Karen loudly demanded that the pregnant woman get up, claiming she had seen the seat first and wanted to sit there. The pregnant woman looked confused and asked Karen what she meant. Karen repeated her demand more forcefully, telling the woman to get up and let her sit down. The pregnant woman politely refused, explaining that she really needed to sit as she had been on her feet all day and needed to rest. But Karen was having none of it. She stepped forward and grabbed the pregnant woman's arm, trying to pull her up from the seat. The woman let out a cry of pain and the people around her started to take notice. A teenage girl who looked about 16 or 17 years old asked Karen what she thought she was doing. Karen snapped back, telling the teenager to mind her own business. The girl stood her ground and told Karen she was hurting the pregnant woman and needed to let her go. Karen laughed and tightened her grip on the pregnant woman's arm. That was when the girl took a swing and decked Karen right in the face. Karen stumbled back. The girl didn't waste any time. She grabbed Karen by the arm and started to pull her away from the pregnant woman. The teenager shouted for someone to call the police, explaining that this woman was trying to hurt the pregnant lady. I snapped out of my daze and fumbled for my phone along with a few others who had witnessed the scene. My hands were shaking as I dialed 911. In all my years of taking the subway, I'd seen plenty of weird things, but never something like this. When the 911 operator answered, I quickly told them there was a woman attacking a pregnant lady on the subway and we needed police at the next stop. I gave the details of our train and the next station. Within minutes, 2 police officers entered the subway car and started to assess the situation. The pregnant woman was shaken, but she was okay. Karen was screaming and cursing, telling the officers that she had every right to sit in that seat. One officer tried to calm Karen down, explaining they needed to take statements from everyone involved before sorting things out. But Karen continued to fight until finally the officers had enough. They stepped forward, grabbed Karen by the arms, and placed her in handcuffs. The officer told Karen she was under arrest for disorderly conduct and assault and began reading her rights. Karen continued to fight and curse as the officers escorted her off the subway and into a police car. The rest of us just sat there in stunned silence, trying to process what had just happened. The young girl who had decked Karen was still there, looking a little shaken but also proud of herself. A random passenger complimented the teenager, saying she had done well standing up for what was right. The girl smiled, looking down at the ground, and replied that she couldn't just stand there watching someone hurt the pregnant woman because it wasn't right. The rest of the ride was quiet. People were still in shock from what had happened, and the pregnant woman was being comforted by a few kind strangers. I decided to approach her and the teenage girl. I asked if they were both okay. The pregnant woman told me she was fine, though a bit shaken, and thanked me for calling the police. The teenage girl said she was good, but expressed disbelief that people like Karen existed. I told the teenager that what she did was really brave. As we talked, I learned that the pregnant woman was actually a lawyer, and she offered to represent the teenage girl if there were any legal problems from her punching Karen. But as it turned out, 3 weeks later when I ran into them both at the courthouse, I'd agreed to be a witness. Karen was charged with assault, disorderly conduct, and resisting arrest. The teenage girl faced no charges due to acting in defense of another person. The judge ordered Karen to complete 200 hours of community service at a pregnancy center, helping women who were actually in need. The teenage girl received a civilian commendation from the police department, and the pregnant woman named her newborn daughter after her subway defender. Now, whenever I'm on that subway line, I make sure to look up from my thoughts and pay attention to the world around me. You never know when someone might need your help. I've worked at Supermart for nearly 5 years now. I started as a cashier, worked my way up to department manager in electronics. It wasn't my dream job, but the pay was decent and I had a good team. Most importantly, I'd earned respect from my co-workers through hard work and treating everyone fairly. Our store had recently gone through some changes. Corporate decided we needed a regional manager to oversee 3 local stores, including ours. That's when she showed up. I'll just call her Karen since that's what everyone called her behind her back. Karen had been with the company for 20 years, but she'd spent the last decade at the corporate office. According to rumors, she'd been encouraged to return to store operations after some office politics went south. From day one, it was clear she resented being here. I first met her during a department manager's meeting. She barely acknowledged anyone, spent the whole time on her phone, and then ended the meeting by saying she'd be whipping this place into shape. We all exchanged looks. Our store consistently ranked in the top 10% for customer satisfaction and sales. The break room became the first battlefield. We had a pretty nice one. Nothing fancy, but we'd pooled money to buy a good coffee machine, there was a decent microwave, and we kept it clean. The day after that first meeting, I walked in to find a new sign. Break room rules. Effective immediately. Personal food items must be labeled. Nothing to be left in refrigerator overnight. Break room to be used only during designated break times. Coffee machine restricted to management use. That last one caught everyone's attention. The coffee machine that we had bought was now for management only. I approached Karen in her office later that day. I asked her about the new break room rules. Karen didn't even look up from her computer as she asked what I was inquiring about. When I mentioned that the coffee machine had been purchased through employee contributions, was everyone chipping in, she said that since it was now in a company break room, it was company property. I tried to explain that this didn't seem fair to the employees who had contributed, but she cut me off. She talked about fairness, complaining about having to manage what she called a backwater store when she should be at corporate, and dealing with employees who thought they were entitled to special privileges. She said the rules would remain as they were. The next day, our head cashier found her lunch missing from the refrigerator. When she questioned Karen about it, Karen told her she had thrown it out because it wasn't labeled. The head cashier explained that her name had been on the lunch bag, but Karen replied that the rule specified food items must be labeled, not just a container. This kind of nitpicking continued for weeks. The store's mood darkened. Employee turnover, which had been practically non-existent, suddenly spiked. We lost 3 good workers in a month. Then came inventory weekend. Twice a year we do a full store inventory, which means long hours and all hands on deck. It's exhausting but necessary. Traditionally, the store provides meals for everyone working these marathon shifts. The Friday before inventory, I checked with our store manager about food arrangements. When I asked the store manager about the food for inventory weekend, he told me that Karen had decided not to provide meals this year, claiming it was an unnecessary expense. I said we were asking people to work 12-hour shifts without food, and the store manager agreed, explaining that he had tried to reason with Karen, but she refused to change her mind. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my team, working those long hours without even a pizza to look forward to. By morning, I had a plan. I called everyone from my department and a few trusted people from other departments. We pooled some money and I went shopping. I bought sandwich platters, chips, cookies, fruit, and drinks. I even got a few coffee carafes from the local coffee shop. On Saturday morning, I arrived early and set everything up in our training room, not the break room. When people arrived for the inventory shift, I quietly spread the word. Around 10 a.m., Karen walked into the training room. Karen asked what this was and who had authorized the food. I said it was just some food I had brought for my team. Karen said it was clearly meant for the entire inventory crew. I said anyone was welcome and mentioned that we had all chipped in. Karen said this was unacceptable and that I was undermining her authority. I disagreed and asked how providing food could undermine anything. I said we were just making sure people had enough energy to complete inventory accurately. By now, a small crowd had gathered. Karen looked around. Karen said the food needed to be moved to the break room. I reminded her that according to her own rules, the break room was only for designated break times, and we were using the training room so people could grab food quickly without taking an official break. She said this incident would be going in my performance review. When she left, one of the stockroom guys started clapping that turned into applause. The inventory went perfectly. In fact, it was our most accurate one in years. Monday morning, I was called to the store manager's office. Karen was there, along with our district manager who had driven in from headquarters. This was it. I was getting fired. The district manager said there had been some tension during inventory weekend. Karen called it insubordination. The district manager asked Karen to let him handle the situation. He turned to me and said the inventory results were excellent, the best in the district. He mentioned he had been hearing concerns about morale at this location since the regional restructuring. Karen shifted in her chair. The district manager said he had reviewed the new policies, including the break room rules. He said effective immediately those rules were being rescinded, and Karen would be transitioning to a different role within the company. I tried to keep my face neutral. That afternoon, I posted a new sign in the break room guidelines, suggestions only. Please be courteous with shared spaces. Label your food if you don't want it mistaken for community items. Coffee is for everyone. If you take the last cup, make a new pot. The new regional manager started the following week. First thing he did was chip in $50 for a second coffee machine. This happened about 6-7 years ago. I still think about it sometimes when Christmas rolls around. Some background about me. I'm a 33-year-old guy who's been working for that big blue store with the yellow Spark logo for about 10 years now. I started as an overnight temporary worker, but eventually moved to a different location to be closer to my fiancée at the time. The commute to my original store would have been an hour each way, which wasn't worth it. At this new store, I worked in the bakery deli department before transitioning to the online department, which is where I am today. The store I transferred to was different from my first one in a key way. It was open 24 hours, unlike my original store which only operated from 6 a.m. to midnight. But even this 24-hour location had one sacred day when it closed: Christmas. The schedule was pretty straightforward. We closed to the public at 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve and wouldn't reopen until 6 a.m. on December 26th. This gave everyone who worked there at least some time to spend the holiday with their families. On this Christmas Eve, I was scheduled for the closing shift at the deli, working from 11:15 a.m. to 8:15 p.m. Following our standard procedures, we started shutting down the department around 6 p.m. Our usual cleanup routine involved having one person washing pans and cooking equipment in the back, another cleaning the hot food section, while the rest of us would clean the slicers on the cold cut side bay. It was almost 7:45 p.m. and the store-wide announcements about our closing were already playing over the PA system. Asset protection staff were positioned near the entrance doors to start turning away any last-minute shoppers. I was busy cleaning the cheese slicer bay. The cheese residue that builds up after a full day of use is disgusting. That's when we heard a commotion coming from the front entrance. Our deli department was positioned right at the front of the store, just off to one side near the registers, which meant we had front row seats to what was about to unfold. From what I could see, a man had decided that 10-15 minutes before closing on Christmas Eve was the perfect time to do his shopping. When asset protection stopped him at the entrance, he loudly complained that the store never closes. His exact words echoed through the front of the store. He then pushed his way past them and continued arguing as he walked into the store. He kept insisting that the store should not be closed and never closes, and how inconvenient this was for him. As he rounded the corner near our department, I saw him for the first time. He noticed us working in the closed deli section, and what he said next is something I'll never forget. He loudly exclaimed about the deli being closed, questioning why it would be closed in a tone that suggested We had closed just to ruin his Christmas Eve plans. I gave him a look that said we weren't the ones who made the rules, and that I wanted to go home to spend time with my family. I went back to cleaning the slicer just as one of my co-workers poked his head out from the back where he was washing dishes to see what all the commotion was about. My co-worker asked what was happening out front. I explained it was just someone who thought we should stay open past closing time on Christmas Eve. My co-worker wondered if the man thought we didn't have families to go home to. I replied that apparently not, and mentioned how the customer claimed our store never closes. The man was intercepted by asset protection staff and management, who escorted him toward the exit. As they walked him out, he was still protesting. He complained about how ridiculous the situation was, and that he just needed to grab a few things, insisting it wouldn't take long. The manager explained that they had been announcing the holiday closing hours for weeks and told him that the store would close at 8 p.m. today and reopen on December 26th. The man continued to argue, saying he needed to shop right then and claiming this was terrible customer service. The asset protection officer told him he needed to leave the premises, explaining that all employees deserve to spend Christmas with their families. The man threatened that he would never shop there again as he was finally escorted out. I like to imagine he was banned from the store for a while after that incident, but I never asked about it. We all just went back to our cleaning, shaking our heads at someone who thought their last-minute shopping was more important than letting retail workers have one day with their families. What makes this story stick with me after all these years is just how entitled some people can be. The fact that this man couldn't understand why a store would close on Christmas Eve, or why deli workers wouldn't be slicing meat for him at 7:50 p.m. when the entire store was shutting down, still amazes me. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.